You still have it in, but no pain?
Yeah, because they
Pardon?
Ready?
put a stent in.
My goodness. Wow.
Ready? Okay. I'm calling the meeting to order of the Park and Recreation of May 13th. Is 6:30 p.m. Call to order. All commissioners are present except for Commissioner Dunn. Or
here.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Lentz,
That's
who's
correct.
right next to me.
Yes.
Commissioner Lentz. Pardon me.
That's right.
And we have staff. Schillinger, yes, there they are waving. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any deletions, additions, or changes?
May I make a suggestion
Yes.
that you postpone your discussion on the mission statement and the values, since this was an item that Commissioner Lentz was very interested in being here for?
Yeah. So let's delete that, put that on next meeting. Any other additions or changes?
I move that we accept the agenda as
Amended?
amended. I couldn't think of the word.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Approval of minutes of April 8th.
I have a change.
Okay.
On page 3, under Commissioners,
Okay.
as Commissioner Dunn has done some extensive observation and soul searching, and now believes that the adjustable basketball hoops are a good idea. And I want to say that my soul searching is usually done about peace and justice and matters of morality, and decision-making about other things are based on observation, which I accept. But I would like to say, as noted by several people in the community, that I really didn't change my position. I merely asked that, as I have every time, that the baskets be adjustable, which I was told they would be, and a crank would be put on them. I did observe, as I had been told by several people in Park and Rec, that a lot of parents do use the lowered baskets, and I came to appreciate that as I saw more people using it. And it has struck me that if that had been the plan in the beginning, that we would have a lowered basket persistently. They would have purchased one at 5 or 6 feet and put it up, but they put an adjustable one there, and an adjustable one then has multiple uses, and that's why I asked that the meeting that we had last time have the same theme to it, that it will be used adjusted at a certain time of the day, or it'll be easier for people to adjust.
Okay, so what do you want changed in this statement, this sentence?
That soul searching is not a good.
You want to strike soul searching?
Just that I've done some observation and believe that adjustable basketball hoops are a good idea and can be used.
Okay, soul searching and now believes, you want that
That
strike?
adjustable basketball hoops are a good idea and can be used
Which you want straight?
for different heights.
Soul searching?
Soul searching and now believes. So Commissioner Dunn has done some extensive observation, and that the adjustable basketball hoops are a good idea.
And that,
She doesn't want now.
and that according to the discussion, a crank or other mechanism will be put in place to make them easily adjustable by the community members.
Okay.
How's that, Tricia? Okay, thanks. Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I know, that takes time, but I
All right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Are there any other? Okay, so we need to amend. I need a motion to amend
I so
the
move.
minutes of April 8th.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, but you have to state what you're changing.
All right, on page
State it.
3,
Stated in the,
under Commissioners, delete soul searching, add, along with adjustable basketball hoops are a good idea, and that a mechanism, crank perhaps, will be used to facilitate them being adjusted by the community members. However you want to word that is fine with me.
Okay, can I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. As amended. Citizen communications. Nothing. Okay, we've striked old business. New business, discussion of sustainability framework for the Baylands. How this came about is I had the sustainability subcommittee, and at that meeting, 2 of the city council members made it noted that there was a time frame for this, that this needed to be reviewed by the committee, Open Space and Ecology, and Park and Rec. And they need to have it back for the city council meeting by June 15th. And actually what this document is, we've been working on it for many years. It started when I came back on the commission. Chris Hart was actually at that time on sustainability. So this document has been revised and gone over sentence by sentence. And if you read the first couple pages of it, it really, like if you go to page 2 and the background, it has really been tailored for Brisbane by the 10 principles, which we kind of worked with One Planet, but as you see, we changed our 10 principles to fit Brisbane. And what will happen with this document, they want your feedback. We picked out the 7 areas that kind of had something to do with park and recreation, and that our commissioners, if you had any feedback, to deliver to staff, that it will go back to city council. So, like I said, this is a framework. It's going to go to city council. It'll be a policy statement. There are guidelines for which will be implemented by the Planning Commission, which they will go over it by detail. I believe in July and August, if the dates are still holding up, there's going to be a survey. I believe, will that be to the public? It'll go out to the public too. And then, like I said, it goes to the Planning Commission and they'll implement. And as you read, this is a living document, so it will change over time too. But we've worked really, really hard on this. So now it's our turn to see if you have any other additions. I need your feedback so we can give to them.
Do you want to go through it?
Yeah, we're going to go, yeah. Well, what we're really supposed to focus on, like I said, I wanted to give you the history. So the background, we've tailored it to those 10 principles. So we're going to start with the sustainable transportation.
May I make one point at the very beginning where the 10 principles are mentioned? And I can see under health, safety, and happiness, encouraging active, safe, meaningful lives. I would like to see the word recreation somewhere of importance in this document, and I haven't seen it. And maybe in the beginning of it, in those 10 principles, that might be a place they might fit it in. We focus on open space, the culture, economy, and I think recreation has to have a presence, not just sort of blended into everybody's happiness, but there's a specific focus in the function of recreation. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, where would you put it, and which one?
I would include it somehow in number 10. It seems like that probably is the best place.
And health, safety, happiness, and recreation?
Or recreation, health, safety, and happiness, or whatever order is
Well, they want
in there.
to be kind of specific.
All right.
Okay. So when you get to
5 or 3?
3, is there anything
I
on
have a-
sustainable transportation?
I do.
Yes.
Um,
What page are you on?
27.
Okay.
And I love how many aspects of transportation were thought about. The only thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way was in the last paragraph on page 27. It mentions minimal parking areas. That to me sounds problematic. I know it's great to encourage people to take public transportation, but we should also make sure that if we're having this beautiful site built, there's probably, with everything that it's offering, it's going to draw a lot of people, especially if we're doing it the way that this has outlined. I can see this being really a destination for a lot of people to go shopping and working and things like that, and minimal parking areas already to me sounds like it's going to be difficult. And so I just want to make sure that we're going to have enough parking available so that it's not a struggle. So I don't want the last thing I want is to try and go over there and, maybe I'm driving or something and then have a hard time finding parking.
Well, I just know that the zero carbon, they kind of address some of that.
Well, at the same time, though, I mean, there are people who drive too,
Yeah.
and there's all sorts of ways to have public transportation that's electric and very conscious of fuel solutions and things like that. But I mean, there are people who are going to drive. And
Okay,
there should
so
be
you
places
don't
for
want
them to
minimal
park.
parking
Yeah, I think
areas?
there should be acceptable. I think there should be, I don't know the proper word, but minimal does not sound like something that sounds like something that might come back to bite us later.
I think after reading this whole thing,
Here, get the microphone.
I think, is it even on?
You could use mine.
Okay. I don't know. Is it? I think after reading the whole thing, the focus really seems to be on not having more traffic and more of a carbon footprint, though, and to provide a lot of parking kind of seems contrary to what they're trying to do here.
Well, maybe there
Well, through the chair,
should be a medium. I don't know about minimal, but
the thing that strikes me is this isn't going to happen immediately, and we're seeing this very heavy trend towards cars that are not going to have the carbon footprint, but people are going to be using them. They will be smaller. They will be electric or run on some sort of battery. I don't see that we're going to have that heavy footprint. When I looked at the Kyoto, Japan model, Japan is a much different place than this area. It is so heavily populated. They already don't use cars for the most part because it's impossible to use them. So in terms of the carbon footprint, I don't see cars in the future having that much of an impact. So I agree with Commissioner Davis that appropriate parking, is okay, and then we find out what's appropriate at the time. It may be minimal.
it also says in so many of these areas of transportation, we're talking to San Francisco, right now this needs to happen, we have to get funding for this, and we might be able to, and that sounds like to build like a line, like these are all things, these sorts of transportation. It's not just like we're putting in a bus line here, like there's big infrastructure that needs to go in, and that's like there's lots of contingencies here about like working to these are things that we want to provide, but they're going to take substantial work to make that happen. And who knows, this area could open up and that light rail, those lines or these things may not be in place yet, and so for the first however many years, maybe a lot of people will have to drive to get to this area. And like it said, I mean, if there are people in other parts of the county who are coming here, this document says like right now there's not a really good bus transportation system. So I think there does need to be appropriate parking, and at some point it's better to have and not need than to need and not have. And later on you can pave some of those parking lots and put something else, but I would hate to see us not have enough spaces to meet demand.
Okay.
Agree.
But then also, when you get to page 33,
Well,
the discussion.
Before we go to that,
Well, no, I'm just that it says clearly to achieve this goal, a combination of walking, cycling, transit, carpooling, and electric vehicle use will be necessary, because this is an enclosed type of
Right.
area, and
Well, those are just my 2 cents.
yeah, and that's
And that's fine.
and also you have to remember what the recommendation the recommendation key performance indicators are. So,
So the chair, I'm trying to understand how, and I've read the whole thing. I'm trying to understand how nowhere do I see the word accessible. If I've missed it, somebody help me out. But I don't see anything that says accessible. It says easy pedestrian and bicycle lifestyle. Well, if you have legs, you can walk over there and ride your bike, perhaps. And if you don't have legs, then you are being discriminated against and you cannot use this area. We haven't addressed anywhere in here the aging population, and we're going to have population aging more and more, larger groups. So I keep looking at it and say, every time we say walking or bicycle, I think to myself, have they thought about electric carts? I mean, some grocery stores think about them, and after I had my knee surgery, it was a godsend. I'm amazed that nothing here addressed any ADA regulations, and I couldn't understand that. So maybe it's addressed in some other part of a document.
Well, I think that's a different question.
that
than,
is, yeah.
I mean, I started this project back when Chris was on it, and this is more talking about how do you make it sustainable, not how you make it usable. Which is very different. I mean, because when you talk about sustainability, you're talking about the 3 E's, and you're talking about not using up more resources than this planet can provide for. So, whether or not it's ADA compliant doesn't really talk to the question of what are the resources that this is using. ADA is going to come into play in a lot of different other planning and construction types of things.
So let's leave
And the Planning Commission
Let's
will
leave the
take that
ADA out, and let's just go towards. We'll do some soul searching, and we'll talk about discrimination, and we'll talk about the fact that if you talk about bicycle paths, have you widened them to enable somebody who rides an adult trike to use them? Has that been done? I didn't see it anywhere, and I did look. So my concern is this. In reading the whole thing, I keep finding this lack of addressing this key issue for recreation, for shopping, for housing. It doesn't seem like we're making them.
Well, housing is definitely. I mean, housing is not part of the city's general plan for this area,
Correct.
so that would not be included. And I mean, I hear what you're saying, and that might be something you may want to add to Section 10 when you're talking about happiness and safety, because that's really where you're talking about how do you create a happy community. This section is trying to say is how do you
get there?
sustainable
Well, you can't get there.
Right, but this is saying how do we ensure that this project is going to use only one planet's worth of resources. So right now, as a society, I think we use somewhere around 7 planets worth of resources for each American in this. Probably said that wrong. For each person in this country. So that's unsustainable in the long term. So what One Planet Living is trying to do is say, how do we bring that footprint, not only of carbon, but of all the other resources that we use, water, trash, and all that, so that way we're only using we're only taking out of the system enough for it to be to put back in the long run.
So this is easy. What we do is we take all disabled people and we just cut them out. Now we've cut down our footprint, but essentially,
Well, that's not what it's saying, Jamie.
it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, but it doesn't allow for you.
But it also doesn't say we're not going to allow Jewish people to be there. I mean, because you could, being Jewish, when we sit there and say, oh, we're going to cut out the disabled, in my heritage, that has been one of those things. And we don't look at this as saying it's discriminating against Jewish people because we're not saying we're going to put a temple there. I mean, I think what you're saying is very important when it comes to the happiness portion, because we want to make sure everybody's happy. But from a transportation perspective, how do we as a community want this to only use up one person's worth of resources? So what this is coming and saying is that we want to reduce our carbon footprint to some very low number.
I
Point
clearly understand that, and I think that if it can be very nicely adjusted by saying that pathways, walkways will be available for all modes of transportation, including wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, adult trikes, bikes, so that they're all included. It doesn't, I mean, it's to whatever service a person needs that they need to be able to get themselves to. And rather than having someone have to wait for a rideshare bus that takes disabled people to the shopping center or to the restaurant, they want to get on their bike and go over there. For example, the workman bikes are a good example, kind that are used at the airport that people use to get back and forth on the tarmac from plane to plane and service to service. These are the kinds of things that we can include that will make it accessible for everybody, whether they're going over there for recreation or they're going over there to shop or they're going to eat. We can include that. And my thinking is that it should be included across the board, not just under health and safety. It's under transportation because it's a way a lot of people will want to transport themselves.
Okay, where do you want to have it at? I'm
Well,
sorry, Lyle.
Yes, so I do see that it's in here. On page 30, number
Great.
5, clearly talks about the accessibility, the type of sidewalks, the type of grade, the accessibility, examples of things for accessibility of obstructions in the sidewalk, mid-block access, convenience, shortest path, walking distance, all things that we would talk about, calling out a classification of the grade of the. Now, I'm not sure what classification of level B is. Stuart, you may know the difference of what that is, but again, describing the type of sidewalk and easements for that. So it's not explicit, but nor is it silent on the accessibility of things. So I think that your concerns you're talking about is covered at what I'm reading in number 5.
I read that also, and it said safety, accessibility, examples, obstructions in the sidewalk, mid-block access, convenient, shortest path, minimal weight, and intersections. But every time they talk about bicycles, there's no nod to the fact that people might be riding another form of transportation. So that's at that point I wrote down wider lanes and the workman bikes, specifically because when I read that, I saw the accessibility word, but I didn't see it adjusted in a way that would adjust the
Yeah.
pathways. They were bike paths or walking paths, but no sense of wheelchair use. And all you have to do is go downtown San Francisco and you see people in electric wheelchairs shopping and going from place to place. And that would be a thing that I think would be an important consideration. Howsoever that committee wants to put it in, that's my suggestion.
And just in terms about like parking, like just because you have parking doesn't make it less sustainable. It's how your patrons choose to get there that determines the sustainability. And they may have, like I said, electric vehicles that they drive to get there. So, what we can do is provide lots of sustainable options for people to utilize. And I think this mostly focuses on like all the other things that are more in our control, right? So we can more control how our buildings are being built, what sorts of restaurants we're putting in and where they're getting their food. We can't necessarily control how people are getting to the location, but we want to make sure that we are providing them lots of sustainable options, because we will probably provide options. There will be a bus route, there will be something, and all of those things should be sustainable, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't also provide ample parking. That's where someone may just decide to drive a gas guzzler Hummer over, or they may decide to drive a Leaf. We can't control that, but we should still provide that for those people who are going to be driving.
How would you prevent someone
can't.
driving a Hummer over there and shop here because
You can't.
you can't?
Well, you can put parking spaces that don't have enough space for Hummers.
You could do
Okay.
that.
I mean, that would be one way.
Howsoever they want
do
to
that.
do it. I
So-
was thinking under bike sharing, when they talked about things of that sort, that if we include in bike sharing, that they also include adult bikes, bikes for people that are disabled. There are folding models that don't take up a lot of space, and they're easily straightened to a full bike. As I said, the workmen have one, and I think that's If you had a couple of those, I mean, you go to a shopping, whatever, a grocery store or something, they'll have carts. They may have 1 or 2 electric carts. So I'm not saying that all of them have to be a certain way, but I would like to see that we make it available to whomsoever in the community would need to use it.
So the note I have for, I'll get to that one in a second, Jamie. I just want to end up with finished parking areas first.
Sure.
So as opposed to saying minimal, is the Parks and Recreation Commission recommending ample?
Would be,
Well, I mean,
that would be,
that's my personal thing.
Well, that's why I'm asking, is the
So,
commission making that recommendation?
If
You want to make that recommendation?
I
Do you have to
do.
change the word minimal to ample?
No, I don't. I don't want to make it ample.
appropriate, maybe not excessive or over the, I mean, minimal, I think there should be some sort of compromise.
Well, so minimal to me means the most amount of parking needed for the space allotted,
Yes.
right? Versus having ample, which means overabundance of parking space. There's extra parking. So we want the minimum amount of parking available for the space entitled. If we look at, again, if reading through this document, there's lots of things up front that talk about ideas and everything, and then there's the approach at the latter parts of each of these sections. If you look at the approach of how they plan to implement something, if they're talking about building something in a quarter or half a square mile radius of things where there isn't ample parking to be had because what's being taken up are the amenities and things that are going to be used, encouraging walking, riding, bike, whatever there might be, so there's not going to be ample space.
I just don't want there to be parking problems. I don't want to see this where if we're providing minimal parking, there should still be enough parking where maybe if you drive 5 to 10 minutes, you find a spot, not like 30 to 40, so that there's still like parking. Maybe it's not like a Walmart parking lot or a Target parking lot. That's not what I'm suggesting, but I'm suggesting enough parking where people can, drive around for 5 to 10 minutes and find a spot and not be frustrated that they can't park. And that's, I'm thinking about neighborhoods in the city or stuff where there is minimal parking. You have to hunt for it. And while we have the opportunity here to adjust that, I just don't want to see this being something that's frustrating for those people who do have to commute that way to get to this area. Being turned off because it's that much of a challenge. And like I said, I feel like this area is going to be a draw from far and wide. I think just from what it's offering, I can see a lot of people coming to go here. So maybe some sort of assessment be done to find out, we expect to have this many people visiting this area per day. I don't know if we can do that. How much do we anticipate are going to be using public transportation? Will public transportation in these forms that we're talking about being available at the time that the site is projected to be open to the public? And those sorts of things to determine what is how many spaces does that mean?
Now, remember, the Planning Commission will dissect and
Okay.
do all of that. This is just a framework that we're giving them the information. They have to do it. There's certain codes now, building codes. They have to do everything accessible, ADA codes. So that will be addressed by them. Trust me, they'll do all kinds of
So
stuff.
maybe we should outline what minimal means, because to me that's confusing.
Well,
through the
but,
chair.
But just wait a minute. But like Lyle said, at number 5,
Right.
that kind of when you look at the recommendations and then the discussion, they'll
Number 5 where?
local and sustainable.
Page 30.
They will look at all that because we don't even know what this is going to look like yet,
Well,
and what they're going to be putting all out there yet.
they may look at it, but we've been given the charge to look at it too.
Yeah.
So these are just suggestions. I agree.
It's
I
just a
agree
red
with Lyle
flag.
that the word ample can be seen as being
Or appropriate, I don't know.
extensive or overabundant or so forth. So I agree with that. I also see Madison's concern about minimal, and appropriate might be an okay word or something of the sort, and just let them look at it from that perspective. If they ask us to look at it, I think people's opinions are important.
Maybe just to note that that's a concern, that the commission would like to
Sure.
see there be a closer look at the amount of parking provided.
Again, to that point, on page 32, section 9, section F, again, this is under this section having to deal with how we plan to implement. The recommended implementation approach is to have reduced parking footprint. So that's not ample, it's not minimal, it's just reduced. Reduced from what? will be
Reduced
determined-
from what is the question?
But again,
what does
that's
that mean?
Well, reduced based on what would normally have been done in the past. Again, back to minimal. So again, this is just in the very, very early stages of concepts of framework. It's not detailed about we're going to build X amount of space with 100 parking spaces or 50 parking spaces, but you will have reduced. The intent about sustainability, what Stuart mentioned about, is to have longevity of things. If we put lots of extra parking spaces, what is that space taking up? The other 10 sections of this talk about sustainability for food, etc. All the land you cover up with asphalt is land you take away from growing things.
Right, and that I understand. I wholeheartedly understand what sustainability is about, but the vagueness is what concerns me. So when I see like gray language or vagueness, that's when I'm like, okay, what does that mean, and how do we determine what is appropriate, not appropriate, reduced, from where, that those are the questions that I have, and so that's why I'm wondering, how do we determine that, and what does minimal look like? Because that's a subjective term, right? You have your version of what minimal looks like, and I have mine, and maybe I'm way off. Maybe my version of minimal is way less than what their version of minimal is, and so for me, I just like to, as this process goes on, and if we're asked to have input, to actually get a more in-depth look of what the parking situation specifically looks like and what minimal means. Because it's not that clear. It's just...
If I may, Stuart, how should we do this? When we go through each one of these, this section 3, sustainable transportation, should we just make notes?
Right. I mean, what my impression is that based off of what you're doing tonight, is staff will be able to put together a memo on what your concerns are to be able to provide to the city council for their June 15th
So we
meeting.
can just do like
What we're doing.
sustainable, and then you'll just put concerns, and that'd be
Yeah, and not a recommendation or anything, just
and
something
we just
that-
add. I mean,
Sure.
what?
Yeah.
Just
I'm done talking about this.
I think
I mean, I
Because
don't,
I don't want to just look at one sentence. There's a lot
just
to
saying.
go through.
Yeah.
There's the other sections that come.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so far what I've got down for is like we have concerns over what minimal parking means. We also have concerns over how are we going to ensure that everyone has access to the site, not just those who are able-bodied.
Right,
Good. Okay.
So those would be, at the moment, those are the two concerns that I've heard.
right.
Okay.
And and I think if I'll talk to John, but we have another meeting on June, I don't even know what day it would be. 17th. June 10th. So maybe, what I can do is have it agendized for that meeting, and then put it as part of the packet for the, if you agree to it, what I've written on June 10th, I can just give it to the city council at, on June 11th to be part of their meeting.
Okay.
I have a
Yes.
question,
Yes.
though. Are we giving our opinion as a commission because there are two completely
Right.
diametrically opposed?
I don't think so. I
Yes.
think it's just what's come up.
other end?
Well, I think as a commission, you need to say yes. I mean, you're making a recommendation as a commission as to what your concerns are of this document. Any individual can make whatever, come June 15th, can make whatever concerns they have to the city council if they're not represented by the whole commission. And you just say, as an individual, here I have these additional concerns. Just as long as you're not representing the commission as a whole at that moment.
Right.
so. Am I to understand that we're to vote on everything everybody says and say, do we all agree on this? Is that what you?
I mean, I need to have something from the commission to say, here's what the commission is thinking. No different than any other time I bring a report back to the city council from the commission that you as a commission agree to it.
Okay.
Doesn't mean everybody agrees to it, just means as a whole, you know.
I think the note about parking is not us saying that we think there's not enough, but maybe the statement is more like interested in getting more details as to what minimal parking means, more information versus saying like, you know, we think there's not going to be enough parking.
I don't think
Versus just having, explaining what the process more clearly looks like in determining that.
Agree on that.
I don't know. Well,
More
I'm
information
going
is
to be
always-
biased about it because we've worked on this for so long. And there's some things like on page 28, I want to put in connect to the Bay Trail, but later on when you read some of the other stuff farther down in the document, that stuff's brought up. So you got to remember that too. When we were doing this, we covered every
It's so very thorough.
Very-
I mean, it
every
is like,
base. I mean, we went through every sentence. You know, in fact, there's one person that's on the open space. I mean, she still doesn't like some of the grammar. That's how detailed we were.
yeah.
So
So the only thing is that if they didn't want us to have an opinion, they wouldn't have sent it to us, your committee. They would have just said, here it is, and given it to the council. So I think that there's some validity in getting people to
well, there's certain protocol they have to do too. You know,
whichever, and we know this is not, whatever we say is just going to be suggestion, and the people that have to make the final decisions will do so based upon what they already think and what is maybe brought up from these different committees and commissions that are looking at it. So I don't think anything we say, it doesn't feel to me like it's going to be dyed in the wool. It's going to be discussed at another level and then either accepted, amended, or not. Doesn't matter to me, just as long as it's...
okay. So does everybody agree with what Stuart's going to put on for 3?
Sure, yes.
Lyle?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Then let's move on to 4, local and sustainable
Page.
materials. It'll be 35. And,
We're not supposed to do that one. 5.
oh, excuse me. Thank you.
Still,
5, it's on page 40.
before we do that, on page 31, again, where they talk about the pedestrian pathway, shuttle, et cetera, if we can consider just somewhere, consider the aging population, the use of vehicles by the aging population or the disabled population. Howsoever, wherever they want to put that,
Okay.
a nod to that will, I would appreciate that. And on page 32, bicycle facilities and walkable streets. And I don't see anything that says usable by wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs.
Right.
Or-
So I think that's just a general comment that you want to make sure that
Yes.
this is accessible. So
That's exactly
Yeah.
correct.
right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so 5, page 40, local and sustainable food.
Sounds great.
Yeah, we worked hard on that.
I like this one a lot. I love the idea of grocery store. That is what most of these sections I've loved. That parking was the only thing that really stood out to me, to be honest. But this one excites me the most, and definitely very, very encourage development of a grocery store that sells organic and local food. That is something that's high priority, I think, at least for me, and I think that would be wonderful to see in that area.
Well, and you see is in discussion on page 46 about including fruit trees,
Before we get to that, because that fruit tree is something also that is interesting to me. I didn't see under anything here that it would be affordable. And at this point, I see an awful lot of Brisbane citizens down at the Grocery Market Bargain Outlet, and they're there for a reason. I'm there for a reason. Can't afford the farmer's market. And if you see me over there, I'm usually buying something very fresh that I'm taking as a gift to somebody's house, but it's not going to go to my house because if I want to buy honey and I pay $12 for a small jar of it, which is absolutely above the grade and delicious, but I can't afford that. And so I'm going to go someplace else that I can buy it. And I saw this across the board as everything looked like it's going to be organic. Of course, I then question, as coming from families that farm, how do you know it's organic? That's one thing. And secondly, although I did see one item here that had some kind of markings that you could get, some kind of government standard. But on the whole, that concerns me. But I also don't see one word about affordable. And a very high percentage of our population are not, we know from the farmers market that if everybody in town could shop at the farmers market, that would be a tremendous success, much more than it is now. But they can't. I can't. And
Okay, then
so
put that in there,
affordable has to be some way. And I saw the rolling of eyes. Perhaps it might be difficult, or did I miss it with my glasses? Here, there. How's that?
No, you got it. You said it.
Was I
affordable.
rolling my eyes at you, Jamie?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
It could be. It could have been
Just
just
say it
my
once
logic.
and then we gotta move on.
If I did, I did not mean to.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
the challenge is the same challenge that we're seeing with everything. As resources become more and more scarce, things become less and less affordable.
Yes.
And so the question is always the balancing act between how do you create affordability and how do you create personalized service? Because organic growing takes a whole lot more time than
Yes, it does.
big farm growing.
GMO.
Which, incidentally, I totally agree with. And if I had a choice, it would be my choice.
Right. So I mean, what I'm hearing, and as long as the commission is okay with it, is that we will add a comment that says, the idea of affordable food should be included in this as well.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Any?
And yeah, I just know, like, at the moment, it's as more people use organic food and eat organic food, the price will come down because it'll become, as you get more people working on it, it becomes cheaper.
I'm hoping, yes.
So I apologize if I rolled my eyes.
No, I'm
Is there?
from here. I'm between being able to read with these and trying to see from here. So,
Is anyone else have any?
just 1 second, please. You wanted to bring up, Renee, the fruit trees.
Well, they're just we included fruit trees.
One of the things that has been an issue in town, as long as I've been here, I just can't get over the number of fruit trees we have that go fallow. The fruit just drops, and I think that
But with this farming and the farmers market and and I think farther down the line it says that there will probably be local.
There'll be maintenance of the
community
trees
garden,
to ensure
yeah.
that they're not
So, yeah, they
going
won't-
rancid.
they-
or
well, they won't,
yeah.
but our own town now has that problem.
Well,
we have.
But we're a town. This is yeah.
Exactly. We can't.
No, we can't. I just wish we
tell them they
could make a suggestion in one of our publications saying, if you have fruit, maybe we could find a way to have some people who would, as a routine, pick them and make them available to people in town that need food. Just a thought. And I also thought that food stamps would never be able to be used to buy organic food because they just wouldn't stretch that far. And the thought that we want high-quality food, and we have a foodie culture. We have a foodie culture at a certain level of the economy, but we don't have a foodie culture down low because there it's just, it's sustaining life. It's not a matter of anything more than sustaining life for the day. And that's a big concern for me.
Okay. Anything else on 5?
Yeah, so on page 45, number 6, where it talked about one of the recommended ideas was exploring potential partnership with local schools about managing a small garden.
Run farm.
I'd like to see that expanded upon to go beyond that, to make it to, sorry, Janet's point about low-cost food, make it a larger community garden so that people could grow their own. If they don't have the space in their particular living or housing dwelling, they could use the community garden to grow their own food. So just make that, instead of a smaller area, make it a larger area. So C6 explored a little larger for size.
For number 3, it says if housing is allowed, inclusion of one grocery store. Could a grocery store still be possible even if there's no housing? Is that something that would happen?
It could.
It could.
I mean, I think what this is saying is
Definitely, if there is.
if there is housing, then you want to have people to be able to shop where they live.
But they've made it clear that they want it to be organic and local food. And again, I'm concerned about the high percentage of the population that can't buy at that level. So,
Okay, got those additions? Okay, we're going to move to 6, sustainable water.
What page?
Page 47. That starts.
okay. You want to go to page screen? Look at page 48. I'm just wondering if there's any way in the world, and the second to the last paragraph, where we find a way to think of any other way of naming this process instead of toilet to tap. For some reason, it's just not palatable. And I imagine that is the process, but toilet to tap just is like, gives you a bad taste, I think. So
My guess is that's what the Santa Clara Water District is calling it.
That's
may
what they're
very well
doing.
be.
And therefore, if it's, because we're quoting it as the Santa Clara Water District's municipal reclaimed water plan to include the first, it's what they call it. I understand, but if this is what they're calling it, this is what they're calling it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it wasn't to just, quote, quote, nod rather than actually.
I'll ask. Well, we can ask that question.
The one thing I just want everybody to note is on 49, the last paragraph, and it goes over to page 50. I just want you to read that, and if you have any questions about it, I want you to understand it.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
that the rules are not stringent enough to protect us.
Yeah. So the fruit trees, the urban farm, the whole Baylands. We included that too. So everything is, we really, like I said, tried to cover everything.
I really appreciate all the work that's gone into this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's taken lots of meetings and lots of time.
And even the landscaping, that it'd be friendly and promote water conservation and soil health and environmental outcomes and the habitat, etc. So, do you have anything else in
Well,
this?
when they talk about, we go on toilets again, some years back, when maybe as much as 20 years ago, when we put new toilets in the house, and we put the first one in, and it was a low-flow toilet. It was the only kind. It was the only kind we could buy. We thought it was great. It was wonderful, except that it has to be flushed multiple times, which is just as much use of water. Whereas the old toilet that didn't ever have that problem, we merely put a brick in the inside to reduce the amount of water that was being released. So we were, changing the amount of water, but I think that the low-flow toilets may have been improved over these years. They were really horrible to begin with, and many of them are still in our homes, and we're kind of stuck with them because they're expensive to replace.
And I also wanted you to see on page 54, the turf area not more than 25%. How do you
And
feel
what
about
exactly
that?
do they mean by turf area? I mean, grass, plain?
I believe so, yes. Turf, yeah.
So no grass yards, they're reducing them?
That would be the goal, is to have less
Because then we don't
natural
have to
turf.
water them.
And I guess to that point, going on page 52 about parks as well, is reducing some of the grassland and parks to potentially a synthetic or artificial surface as well, so it doesn't use as much water as well. Right, grounds that we would use for soccer, et cetera, playing, et cetera. Those areas could
Yeah.
be potentially synthetic
Yeah,
to reduce that.
yeah.
And then if we end up with
Better
the great floods
maintained.
or something, and this all becomes really moot.
Well, I mean, the goal is still, I mean, we're still
Reduce-
using more than a single person's amount of water on
Right.
average. We don't, actually, but a lot of other places do. We actually use slightly under what an average person would use. But it's
We're
an
not in
average
Palm
person.
Springs.
It's also an average person in our country, not an average person
Right.
in Bangladesh.
Exactly.
If question, I love the photo figure 45 on page 53, and I don't know if I just didn't read carefully enough, but do we have plans to make little waterways like that? Because I just
That
love
was, to kind of incorporate the, some of the wetlands, trying to get some of those little areas back.
That'd be really
too.
cool to have those little waterways running through that area like that.
Only if it rains enough.
I was going to say, we end up with some of these canal-like things you sometimes see in South City and LA, the huge ones. They're water catch basins, essentially. And the other thing is if they're not adequately cared for and you get a lot of debris in them, and you also can breed a lot of mosquitoes.
True.
I don't know. It's, I mean, it's beautiful. I totally agree with that. I looked at it and I thought, I would like to live there. That'd be lovely. But, then I think of all the other things, and whether or not I would want to have what goes with it, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, Madison, page 55, wetland and water body conservation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had a question about number 7 on 52. Specifically, all areas within FEMA zones A and B must be avoided. So is that specifically talking about FEMA zones A and B on the property there? And how much of a percentage is in that can't be built on? I didn't see any map showing what the zones were, so I was really curious about that.
I'm not sure. I mean,
Yeah.
something that's just, I think the goal is to ensure that as the sea level rises, that we are not having houses get inundated.
Yeah.
So
I saw that.
whatever that
100
whatever that requirement is,
Yeah, and planning will know all that, all the zoning.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's why it's listed here, because then they fine tune it all.
I'm so happy that I'm not them.
Yeah. They'll take several years going through all this.
The
Okay,
benef-
so
I'm sorry.
is there anything else with number 6?
Let's see.
We can move on to 7, open space and habitat. Oh, discussion, Teresa, page 55. It kind of gives a little bit about the Zone A, what it refers to. So that
Right.
might help them.
Right,
Yeah.
I did see that. I just didn't see what was
Yeah.
designated as A and B.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know, when they do the different gradings out there then stuff, the whole thing might change. And after getting all the toxins out of there, it might look completely different too. Okay, so we'll move on to, is everybody done with 6? Anything else to add? Okay, we'll go to 7, open space and habitat. Oh, there's that thing.
I noticed that the city proposed an alternate plan with 50% of the land being dedicated to open space.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And the lagoon is not already counted, so that's additionally wonderful.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And you have to remember, open space and ecology will really probably look that whole
I'm sure.
number 7 over really good.
Oh,
And
sorry.
no,
No.
I'm just the issue also about the trail systems, that I hope that they're accessible trail systems.
Oh, yeah.
Wide enough trails to accommodate, and wide enough and surface appropriate to accommodate all forms of transportation by all levels of ability.
And where'd you say
That was 57.
57.
Right. So what basically what you're just suggesting is, again,
Same
making
thing.
sure that the trail system is ADA accessible.
Yes. But, ADA will say, a wheelchair, the width of this, plus ability to turn in such a radius. But we're going to have to think of other things because we don't want everybody in a line going. There are going to be bikes going by. There'll be other vehicles, people walking. So I'm just saying make it wide enough to allow for a wheelchair, because if we make it wide enough for walkers and bikes and don't make accessibility for a wheelchair or a adult trike, I think then we'll miss an opportunity to provide for everybody.
Okay, any?
Can I just have
Sure,
clarification
yes.
on a term that I saw used twice, and maybe it's just me, but I didn't know how to interpret it. 59, very top of the page, controlling light pollution. I didn't know if they meant, lights, or
Yeah.
whether light as opposed to heavy pollution.
Lights.
Lighting.
Lighting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like stadium lighting would be.
yeah.
Terrific.
And at one time too, it's probably in here, something about solar. They're going to we brought up solar, lighting. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't look at that because, okay, so everything's good with 7?
The only other, I'm just going to, I don't know that I should bring it up, but at each point, when I looked at on page 60, that provides accessible connectivity, number 4, I was hoping that would be in there. And then on page 61, create public parks and open space on an additional, accessible parks. I'm looking at that on number 4 on page 61, within a 5-minute walk or a quarter of a mile. A large number of people can't walk a quarter of a mile, and that's something that, if you say 5-minute walk, quarter mile of all buildings, what exactly then will the others who can't walk do? So, we now have blue placards if you can't walk or can't, for some reason, get to and from shopping areas and things of the sort. I don't know how that will be handled at the time this is built, if ever, but as long as it's in people's minds to include it, I'm really happy with that.
Okay.
Otherwise, I feel like I've divorced all my clients of the past and haven't stuck up for them after sitting on the Capitol steps enough times of demonstrating. I think at this point, to not bring it up would be amiss.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, we'll go on to 8, culture and heritage.
I just wanted to ask a question if somebody could help me with this. This seemed just like to be kind of I don't know, if an afterthought or something. After talking, it would be paragraph number 4 on page 64. Starts out originally. And the last sentence says, reuse of materials was typical practice for the railroad. I just wondered what they meant by that. Why that was...
Why they put that in there?
Yeah.
I think it was just,
Do you know-
we probably, because they were telling a little bit of the little.
I just didn't know. I didn't know what that meant. That
My guess is that was probably from Chris.
Yeah,
Okay.
Being a railroad
Yeah.
person, you probably wanted to make sure that was included.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do we know what it means?
The reuse of materials?
Yeah. What
Might
material?
have something to do
Well-
with, like, maybe in the early days with even all the landfill they did, like when they closed the cemeteries, they used all those headstones and
Oh,
put
right,
them into
that's
the
right.
ground to, to basically use as foundation. And the headstones are used even all over in San Francisco, even at
Yeah.
on Haight Street on the park, where it was used in a lot of the construction there. Maybe they're just talking about reusing, things that were being torn
Whatever.
out and-
It was a nice nod to the railroad. Maybe that was Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it was. He probably gave them all that history.
On 65, at the top, it said, landfill top, the very first sentence, landfill area has been surcharged with presumably clean soil from several debris recycling operations on site. I don't know. I'm concerned about presumably clean soil.
Well, it's supposed to be clean.
I understand that, but
It's been, I mean, the soil that they have, they do testing.
okay.
And I think what this is a concern that no matter how much, no matter how many random tests you take on any piece of, on anything, there's always a chance that something might get through, because if you're testing 90% of it, that other 10% might have something that was not in the first 90%. So I think it was, I think the people who are doing it would say it is clean soil, and I think this is the nod to all those people who wonder if it's clean or not.
The one thing that I wanted to add, and it didn't get added before, it was on page 66, and it's the second paragraph with the,
Is it on?
right under the picture. The Baylands should be designed to emphasize the connection between San Bruno Mountain and San Francisco Bay, utilizing the natural watershed as well as connecting trail network. And I'd like to put in there, with the development of a master trail plan. I would like to have that whole sentence added into, or those words added into that network.
Why don't we? Because that would be part of our
Well,
focus.
because they're going to connect all that.
Sure.
And it didn't, I don't know, it just didn't get put in there. You got that, Stuart? Okay. And I know later, there's stuff said about, I think, a trail plan. Anything else?
No, going quite well.
Yeah, I like how we're still using the ice house and the roundhouse.
Really like the idea of a historical exhibit.
Yeah.
I see museums in these other small towns, and I think we
Yeah.
don't really have that except some things that we have at the library. So
Do you have anything, Lyle? Anybody else? Okay.
I just want to see on page 68, number 5B. I like this. I didn't see this before. Community gardens shall be located in logical and accessible locations. So that if we have the broad understanding of accessible, it is there.
Okay. We'll move to 9, economic vitality with equity and ecology.
What page, 73?
Yeah, it starts on 70, and unless you have anything on 73.
I had thought there was somebody put on Facebook that since 1980, California has built 22 prisons and 1 university, and having a nod to this in the plan that education is important, and that we're located between San Francisco and Silicon Valley, and this is a point of interest to people that have high educational values and so forth. I think having that in this section, economic vitality, is going to be dependent on education. So I'm just looking at the benefits, all the benefits that are here, common international targets and so forth. I'm just wondering if we have done anything about having educational resources in this setup.
I think
Do
they're
we
just
remember
they're like trickled throughout,
Yeah.
Yeah, I-
areas versus
Different
one
areas, yeah.
one
When
general
we did Mission
statement.
Bay and they put the UCSF hospitals down there, there's a lot of education going on in them because they're taking a lot of interns. So I'm just wondering if there's any nod to education anywhere along here.
I mean, there's nod to education about with children with 4-H and about the history
Right.
of the area, but not necessarily. There's education about different like topics.
I'm thinking about
versus
degree
like one
programs
whole.
and things of the sort that would enable, because right now we don't have a high school, of course, and I'm always thinking, wouldn't it be nice if we had higher education closer to town? So anyway, that was something that I kind of looked for in here, and I didn't see any nod to it. So maybe there's a way that it can be included. I don't know, Renee, when you meet. do you think
Well,
there's
here,
any-
on the other hand, our society has
page would
many
it be?
individuals who work jobs that do not require a college education. I'm just,
But I mean, putting
That's
something in there about,
okay.
having, encouraging internships in businesses might be a good,
yeah.
because, internships are not just for people who go to college, but people
Right.
who are, internships and apprenticeships for those who do the skilled trades.
Right, exactly.
So, yep, I wrote that down.
Okay.
Great. The other thing was, when thinking about it, we've talked a lot about having something like the Crucible in our area, something of that sort that our people could participate in another form of education and trade skill development. And I don't know if we can fit that in here. We're talking a lot about tech stuff and our positioning in the tech world because of our location. And I'm just wondering if we can have some nod to skill development that's not in the tech world.
But is this something that this is like we can encourage? This place will bring jobs, and it's desirable probably for like in tech companies and stuff. But we can't exactly like make there be anything, because there will be buildings that will then be rented out. So it's kind of like whoever, we can't make there be a higher education thing happen, but we could certainly say like it's something that we would desire or it's a priority or something like that. But at the end of the day, like we can't make people take public transportation here. Sure. We can't necessarily make sure. And also, we can encourage restaurants to carry certain sorts of foods, but and make regulations. But there's probably a limit on what we can make them do.
I just have an interest in having some if there's new development, if there's some way of having educational resources involved. And I don't know where that will be, but when the committee meets, that comes up. Because we're trying to sustain the land.
Yeah.
We're trying to sustain the water. We're trying to sustain, produce. And I'd like to see sustainability of the humans that are in the area. And part of that is education and skill and training development.
Well, and that's why on page 77 we put the ecosystems service, because people need to what we need to obtain from ecosystems.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Okay, well then we'll move to 10. Health, safety, happiness. Health, safety.
Recreation, health. Well, yeah, I can see where health should be the first one. Safety is really critical, but recreation, I think, should have a place.
Okay, recreation and happiness. Okay. Okay. The other thing too on page 82, the last paragraph. I don't know, this didn't get put in either for it says hiking trails on San Bruno Mountain and along the bay. It should have said hiking trails on San Bruno Mountain and along with the Bay Trail, not only provide recreational opportunities for Brisbane. Yeah, because we do have the Bay Trail, and I know at times we wanted to be able to connect that Bay Trail to the Baylands from over at the marina. Get that somehow
Put that in there as our
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah. And, then the rest of the sentence. And then as you see on page 84, there's the Bay Trail.
Right.
And it will connect up to San Francisco area and then go on.
Yeah. I also, in that paragraph, it's a pedestrian-friendly design will encourage walking. I get out of bed every day and put my feet on the floor, and I'm grateful that I can do that, but I know a vast number of people that have never put their feet on the floor from the day they were born. And so in advocating for them and their ability to get on these trails, I want us to be cautious about encourage walking, although I love the walking and I like walking on Quarry Road, but I think if we can also we'll encourage use of the area however it wants to be, but I think we have to find a way to make these accessible to everyone.
Maybe encourage activity along the trail versus being specific as to.
Well, that's why with having a master trail plan, development trail plan, that would cover all that.
Page 85, number 7, it said the same thing, a similar thing, 5-minute walk of every building.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's why on page 86, number C, provide access to walking trails. And that's what probably it should say, with a master trail plan to be implemented.
and if the master trail plan has included in it accessibility. Because I've walked some of the trails, the Crocker trails, and it's very difficult to walk on them. You never could take a wheelchair on.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, that's, we've talked about that. That one,
But
yeah.
but these are these are going to be new adjustments in time, perhaps 30 years from now. So, trying to see the future, is like we said, we may not have that kind of a carbon footprint because of the way the vehicles will be utilized. But as long as we make an adjustment for people with disabilities, I think it'd be fine wherever we can.
Yeah, and then also, Stuart, I see on page 85A where it says, design a survey for community members to self-rate the level of health, safety, recreation, put in recreation,
Thank you.
and happiness. Is there anything?
Good job. When it said to design buildings to encourage physical movement such as use of stairs instead of elevators, they're designing buildings now that have a lot of ways to get around that increase activity, but not necessarily stairs.
Ramps.
And yes, they do. And so if we really, I'll give you a quick example. There is a preeminent recreational center for disabled people in San Francisco, the Pomeroy Center, which was once called the Recreation Center for the Handicapped. And when I was working there, they were building a new building. And I walked into a conference room for a meeting, and the plans were on the table. The building had started. And I said, can we look at them? And they said, sure. So I took a look at them, and I said, where's the elevator? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, where's the elevator? Well, we don't need an elevator. It's a two-story building. We don't need an elevator because the participants are not going to be using the second floor. I had hired a man in a wheelchair. He was not going to be able to get up to the second floor. In order to comply with what was right, if you go over there on the back entrance to the zoo, you're pulling up in the back to park, take a look to your left. The newest building, which is near the fence, has a ramp that goes around three sides of the building in order to accommodate this failure in planning, which is done by a center that has it as its paramount concern, the accessibility for disabled people. And that was in probably 1984-5 that was done. So it would be very easy to forget this if we didn't make a point of it. And incidentally, accessing that second floor for anybody who had trouble with stairs or in a wheelchair, either self-propelled or had to be pushed, that was almost impossible to go up 2 stories. You know what the ADA slope requirements are. How it took 3 lengths of the building to get up to that second floor. So that's why my concern is that we build it in so it's there. I'll be long gone when this happens, but I'll be happy to see that we've included a concern.
Okay.
I'm thinking, though, it says design buildings to encourage physical movement, such as using stairs instead of elevators. It's not saying that they're excluding elevators.
I didn't feel that way.
Okay.
I didn't feel that way. I was just saying that you can encourage physical ability, but in other ways to access the other levels without elevators and without stairs. Whatever they are, and they change because there's always some new invention that enables people to, find another way to move themselves. So I think investigating what those things are in the building trades would be useful when these buildings are being put up. How else can we make areas accessible?
Okay, is there anything else?
That's a great document.
Okay.
A lot of work.
Well, okay, can you just read back to me what you have so we can all hear? Please? I know, sorry.
No, that's fine. Adding recreation on page 3 to bullet point number 10.
10.
It's going to take me a little bit of time because I didn't mark my pages.
Okay.
To highlight the idea of parking and to say that you're interested in having a better understanding of what the parking requirements will be on page 27. Overall, just making sure that the document takes into account accessibility for all users and making sure that the paths are able to be used by many modes of transportation for people who are older or who have alternative methods for getting around. And that would start, that there's an item on page 30 that has that, that I would put in something like that with aging and disabled population. Making sure that we'll make the recommendation that even if there is no housing, that a grocery store would still be a good idea because it would still cut down on people from here driving other places. Expanding the community farming aspect on point 6 on page 45. Checking to see if the toilet to tap is the wording from San Jose itself, or if it was somebody else's idea of how to express it. Page 48. Make sure that there is non-turf playing fields, and that comes in like around the page 52 area. On page 61, once again, talking about accessibility. And it's like throughout that page. So there's not any one individual area, but kind of all throughout. On page 64, just, making sure that we're comfortable with the last sentence, reuse of materials was typical practice for the railroad. We want to include the idea that we need a development of a master trail plan in this section. We would like to, page 68, define the word accessible in the broadest terms possible. In the
66, you missed, the development of the master trail plan.
okay,
No, I thought he.
I said it. I just didn't say which page.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, that's fine. When we get to the social, economic vitality with equity and ecology, request there's an understanding that education is an important aspect of this, and that we would encourage internships and apprenticeships for people who are at the beginning of their careers.
At whatever age they're at the beginning of their career.
Right. Make sure that people understand that not only are we trying to create jobs for high tech, but we're also interested in skilled trade jobs in that section. Adding recreation on page 80. Page 82, making sure that that the Bay Trail is highlighted and not just trail. Page 84, which says pedestrian, I've got that circled, and then as opposed to saying encourage walking, but encouraging activity, and then making sure that disabled access throughout the buildings, which may, not including stairs or elevators, would be a good idea. Where it says walk on page 85, I circled that because not everybody can walk, and so to work with that, adding recreation on page 85, and then master trail plan, accessibility again on page 86.
Did I miss or not make clear the request for the use of the word affordable?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I wrote that. I'm sorry. I do have that written down. It's at the very top of the page for groceries.
Right.
No, you did. Now I got to go find. It's in number 5. Actually, what I did is I put it at the very top of the page, affordable food. So no, it was not going to be missed, but I did
What
miss it
page
when I was
was that on?
I think it's just an overall comment that we need to make within number 5. So I don't know where exactly it's going to fall within number 5, but I think that's when we talk about not only about organic, but also making sure that food is affordable. And I think that's just an overall comment. That's why I put it at the top of that section. So I apologize.
Maybe it should say local, sustainable, and affordable food. Maybe that's what it should. Maybe that's
That's
how
a
we
good
should.
way to do it.
Maybe
Okay.
that's how we should change the whole title of that
Okay.
and just put affordable.
That's a good idea.
Because I think that's what they don't want to have to rewrite everything. They just. So yeah, do that. Is everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Local, sustainable, and affordable food for the heading. Because that is, designed for Brisbane.
Right.
That's what we did these for.
We don't want them to start thinking truffles are the way to go and importing, trained pigs to find them. Although it would be wonderful if we had if we were exporting truffles from Brisbane, we'd have quite an economy here.
Yeah, it's what Ray Miller kind of said, that we're tailored. That's how he put it, tailored for Brisbane. I liked that, how he put that in there. Okay, good.
Done.
Oh, finally.
It wasn't that hard.
No, but it was a lot of reading, and
We got through that
appreciate
quicker than the budget.
Yeah.
so I appreciate that. And then everybody did see Karen's comments,
Yes,
and
we incorporated that.
She said, about the trail plan, so we did put that.
Yeah.
I didn't know, did say, I can't remember right
You
now.
got it?
Was it her that said 4-H? Or did we
Yeah.
have it?
She said 4-H.
Just
She likes that
4-H,
idea.
Yeah. But also, would you just include her stuff too? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, good. We'll then move to reports. Chairperson. Well, like I said, we worked hard on this.
Oh, yes, we
So
did.
that's, and you can see,
I could
I'll
see
just
you
kind of
spent a lot
show
of
you.
time on it, too.
We crossed out, added stuff. This is what we did a lot. So I'm
Wow.
just letting
How
you.
long did that take you?
Oh, they've been doing this for years. I kind of came in on it. When I first came on, I thought, oh my goodness, what did I
How
get?
long is yours? Like how many?
I think 3 years,
3 years.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
A lot of research to
Yeah.
go into that also.
So I don't really have anything to report.
No.
No, I don't. So subcommittees.
I think the only one that we had was Day in the Park.
Yes. Go. Weren't you there?
Oh, yes, I'm trying to remember.
We had
I wasn't,
kind
so
of-
you're gonna-
We had a lot of ideas
Oh,
and things that we wanted to try. Compliments.
Oh,
of
yes, Teresa.
She had a lot of great ideas, and so we're going to see if we can accomplish some of those ideas.
What are the ideas?
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa, yeah.
Come on, Teresa.
I'm going to try and remember
I
some of
know.
the things I brought up. One that I brought up, though, was to incorporate another part of our community to the mind of bringing more people down there and being involved was involving, we have a dog park. Let's involve people and their pets. So I thought of some type of pet parade, pet costume, just some type of activity that's geared towards the pets in town, people and their pets.
I love that. I've been wanting that for such a long time. So that is a great idea.
Well, Russ loved the idea, so hopefully we're going to run with it.
Well, also,
Do they, I may have
Hearing
missed it,
something
but have
towards
they in the
the
past
teenagers.
couple of years done a parade? Because some years back when my nieces were living in town, they had a parade and horses and
Yeah, we,
Girl Scouts.
I was in the
and
parade.
Soccer players were in the parade.
Costume.
it started out with Halloween.
yes.
Halloween. We would dress
it
up
was-
and there would be awards
Yeah,
given.
we had a costume, Halloween costume.
Jefferson or Reardon High School would come and play.
And I think Jefferson too, and that started the parade, and they walked down, and it was the opening of the Day in the Park. Yeah.
So has it?
They haven't done that for years because then everybody started playing soccer, and all the kids were gone.
Right.
There wasn't any kids. So then that's why when Randy Kate was on the commission and Dale Conway, I think those guys started the Brisbane Derby again because they had the Derby, I guess, when they were kids. So that's what kind of took over the parade, do the Derby to open the Day in the Park.
So Teresa, were you thinking of a parade as such with the pets?
Yes, I don't know how big it will be, whether it'll come down the street or just be, through the park. It hasn't really been formulated yet. But, it's just
I think it'd be great.
a baby idea
There
right
are a
now.
lot of people at the dog park that would like that, and there are people that,
And people not in the dog park.
Yes,
There are a lot of people
they're-
with pets that
right.
just walk all over town.
That's exactly
or the
right.
marina or wherever with their dogs, so, yeah.
and many of them dress their pets.
Yeah, you could have a costume.
They might
contest.
like to put a costume on them.
Also, Teresa brought up having something for the teenagers, possibly a band just for the teenagers.
Yeah, perhaps the area, over near the skate park. It just seems that
They're kind of left out.
the teenagers are a bit left out, not in general, but they don't exactly come down and hang for the whole day or really enjoy things. And I think if we give them an area, the skate park already kind of lends itself to it anyway, but to have a band maybe with music that's a little younger and
Skate park
A
will be
DJ?
closed.
Maybe.
yes, Russ did bring that up.
But the
And,
basketball courts won't.
They might be the staging area for the skateboard park
I see.
because you have to have the equipment someplace.
Right, I see.
so they're going to be closed because it's being worked on?
Yes.
Under
Okay.
construction.
I mean,
Well,
we're
we could
looking.
offer-
Russ was talking about having, what's the the line thing that's going
The
to.
zip line, that's why we kind of thought having it over
Right.
there.
And something else like the sumo wrestlers.
Right.
And anyway,
No, that makes sense. But just to let you know, like my guess is, I think we're looking for construction sometime after school starts in September. And
Oh,
it's a
okay.
I think it's a 6 to 8 week
Okay,
construction period. So, from that perspective, the skate park and the basketball court will probably be out of commission during
Basketball
that
court
period of
also?
time.
yeah. Well, yeah, we didn't get that information when we met.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's good to think about that. So maybe
But in the
not
future-
necessarily like
Right.
a DJ or a band, but maybe we could try and aim to have booths or activities that are geared towards teenagers or like people from organizations that, we have a lot of nonprofits that come, maybe some that are more geared towards teenagers, but we could figure out. But that's a good idea to have that group top of mind and thinking about how we could provide for them better. We do a lot of really great stuff for little kids.
Well, that's what Teresa brought up, because there are some local teens that are in bands, that are performers.
Yes.
I'm just thinking of Hannah Carter, who performs in a lot of places, guitar, a songwriter,
Derek Hemming, Tony Aguilar.
yeah. So, that was a good suggestion.
Cool.
So
Maybe
we've
those-
kicked around a lot of ideas. And of course, we'll meet again and finalize whatever, but Teresa had some great ideas and we went with it. She also had a pie baking.
Oh,
I
that's
was
a good
saying
idea.
just another way of incorporating more people into coming down was having some kind of, whether it be a chili cook-off or a pie baking or whatever you're canning, and just kind of like a state fair-esque kind of thing where there's a bit of a contest.
That's nice.
I love
kind of thing
that.
going on.
I do. I love
Well, in the past, remember, we had the kids did the
eating
pie eating or the whipped cream, and then at one time we had it was a big fundraiser too. I think I don't know if it was the best PTO. They dunked the teacher or dunked the principal.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That was fun. We did that, and that raised a lot of money.
I think a contest is a good, people love contests.
So that's where we are until we meet again.
Yeah, and then we'll probably at that meeting then finalize just what entertainment, the jumpies, the trampoline, and the zip line, because that might change in everything with that construction. I might not be able to do it this year. Who knows? Well, you just got to find the.
Where did you want to run it from?
Well, we kind of thought maybe here Park.
I think
because
the road might be clear. So
Why
I'm just
not
saying that
Query? Why not Query
the road
Road?
might the road would be clear. It's just that the
too far away.
Oh, I see.
the basketball court and the
Yeah.
skateboard park is going to be what's
Yeah.
going to be worked on.
But the road will be okay.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, that's
How else am I
still
gonna get
an
to work?
idea. And then we talked about, do we have a band or do we have a DJ? And
We're kicking that idea
yeah,
around.
we're still,
Let's get a
doing that.
band.
we're still doing that.
can.
And when to really have the band play at what time if we did do a band? Because there's different areas. Some people want a band, some people don't want a band. So we're trying to figure that out. So, is there anything else? I know we met a while ago. At first, I thought, we met? Yeah. Because we've been trying to schedule some other subcommittees, and there's been no luck, so I totally
Anyone else? Me?
did a blonde thing. Forgot.
And Tricia tells me there were no other subcommittees were scheduled last month.
There was
We
scheduled,
tried
but changed.
over and over and over again, but
Yeah.
just did not work out well for us this month.
Yeah. And then, like I said, the only other subcommittee was the sustainability, and thank you very much. We took care of that, and that'll go to the city council.
Good.
And also remember that when they have their public meetings, you can go and put input into this to the public meetings
You
as
know,
individuals.
Can I say something about that? I always feel like if I would go to a meeting and talk about something we've talked about, I want to be sure I have it right, what we said. So I don't ever feel comfortable doing that. I will go and talk to them about other things, but I don't.
Well, you wouldn't be the voice of the commission, right? You'd be a personal.
Yeah.
I know, but I still feel like I have a
There's some
responsibility
crossover.
to the commission to, whatever decisions we made, we should support at other places, not just here. And so that's why, you know, I might go and say something about something else going in a neighborhood or something, but I wouldn't feel comfortable speaking about this. And when you brought that up, I thought I don't think I would do that because we're doing this work now and we're sticking together on what we want to say, and this is it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so setting subcommittee meetings.
We're going to try and do the same ones that we didn't do last month,
Oh, okay.
unless somebody has other ones that they need to meet on.
Just the, you know, funding committee, if, depending on how you feel, Madison, and time, we wanted to have the meeting with the key person who was going to give us advice, and we wondered if we can set that up again. Maybe we can set it up at the outside of time, so not look in the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and maybe we'll be giving you enough time.
You know, and I did. And I emailed him right after we decided that it would be better to meet with him in person. And I have to follow up because he did not email me back any dates that he's available in June.
Okay.
So I have to email him again and get in touch with him to see what dates he's available. Because what happens is he's busy.
Right.
So if I can get 3 or 4 dates from him, it might make it easier for us to figure out when that's going to happen.
Okay.
But it'll be in June, right?
That is my hope.
Okay.
As long as he's available.
Let's do like end of June, middle of June,
Just
hopefully.
the 23rd of June is the Lions Club Scholarship Dinner evening, so that would
We'll skip that one.
please.
But yeah, what I hope for is to have him give us,
A few times.
3 or 4 different days that he's available that he can meet in person.
Great. In the evening, right?
That is the hope.
Okay.
I think
right.
I think there's the rub.
Yeah.
He lives in Marin.
Oh.
So
Darn.
I mean, I think it's a challenge, but we will make it work.
Are we asking him to come here?
Yes.
What would happen if he had the time and we could go there?
Or could we meet somewhere in between?
I'd have to ask my city attorney if you're allowed to meet outside of the city limits.
I see. All right.
I'm not sure.
Well, right, because we have to notice the community of the meeting and make it accessible. I see.
Right. So if we meet outside the community, I think that we then have to make transportation available
transportation.
for any community members who would want to partake.
Okay.
I think, but that's what I have a city attorney for. Maybe we'll do something by Skype.
Yeah.
At least we have a visual of him. I mean,
a
I
good
might be able to do something like that,
Yeah.
maybe.
Maybe we can entice him with pizza or something.
You know, he does so many
Skype.
food cook-offs. I'm not quite sure.
Skype
That,
would be the best.
Skype is
see.
hard, though, because it's wah, wah.
It is.
Wah, wah.
It's really working well for Scotland.
Skype, it's very hard. Pardon me?
Works really well for Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
All right.
Hoping
So-
it does.
Onward and upward, so we can go home before 8:30.
Okay,
Great.
yes. Okay, so
Agreed.
subcommittees. I
But-
don't,
I mean, what we think we need is a trail subcommittee. We're going to have the developer for the new buildings will be meeting, and I know that date has been set. And I just heard that the 2 of our members are not available for that, but it is with the public and with the council subcommittee as well to go through that.
now what's that again?
Public art.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The marina is trying to set a subcommittee meeting up. Fundraising is trying to set up a meeting up, and teens are trying to set up a subcommittee. So we're going to try all those again.
Seniors should have a meeting.
We could. I don't know
How?
what topic we talk about.
Well, I've never done or know exactly what's going on
Okay.
with
We could do
the
it.
seniors.
We could do it.
Sure, we'll do a senior.
And Lyle, the only reason that I keep bringing up the trails and the marina, because you're new on it, just to kind of get you up to speed. I did it when Kevin and I were on it, and then Karen came on, and it was just kind of new. And I know that you're real busy during the week, and it's hard for you at night. And I don't know how your weekends. I don't know if you'd want to meet on a Saturday morning and do the walk.
You could have pizza.
What's your tea time? Tell the truth.
Yeah,
Yeah, weekend days are tough.
Okay.
Afternoons probably on weekends are better.
okay,
But evenings I can do as well.
okay.
And then by early evenings too, something like a
Okay.
3:30, 4 o'clock kind of thing.
Oh.
We can make work later in the evenings.
Okay.
Depending on the day, I could do it early morning as well. Just enough
Oh.
advance notice I can work my schedule
Yeah.
to accommodate. So
Yeah.
let me know some dates, times, and
Okay.
we'll find something that works.
Yeah, see, with my work schedule, I work Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday till from 8:30 to 5, and then Wednesdays from 8:30 to 4. And then I usually have weekends open. But I want to do whatever's accommodating
Okay.
to you.
So maybe what we do is we'll have Tricia get in contact with
Yeah.
Lyle and have
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 different times from Lyle,
Yeah.
and then put them out.
That's
Yeah.
how she
We'll
does
do
it
that.
for me.
Yeah. Because I know that Karen's pretty accommodating, but her daughter's going to be in this play over in Moran, so I think, and that's where she is, she's rehearsing now. So I think, it's going to be a little tight right now,
You'll figure it out.
how her weekends are. But we'll work it out. Okay, is that it for? And then when do we have to meet again for Day in the Park? What do
He didn't give us a date.
you guys think?
Whenever,
You-
I'm
Should we-
available most times.
Should we just wait and do it sometime? in
I mean, the budget is going to council on June 8th and 9th, and is adopted
Okay,
on the 18th. So until that point in time, you won't
don't
know
know
if
how
you
much
got
money.
that $10,000 is added to the budget
okay.
or not.
So we'll wait till after that date.
Bonnie, how do you feel about concerts in the park?
I don't know if we should meet another time. I don't know.
I think we haven't got the structure yet about donations.
Yeah,
We
could
feel we're
meet with
coming up on
Steve.
closer to it. Do you think we have enough time?
I think we should probably meet one more time
All right.
for concerts in the park.
Okay.
Okay, that's it? Okay, commissioners. Commissioners have
I don't have any.
anything to report?
I had I wanted to see if we could give a shout out to the Lions Club. We've just kicked off our 100th year anniversary, which we'll be celebrating this whole year. And you'll see the Lions, many of them will be wearing this pin. It's got a picture of Melvin Jones, who started the Lions Clubs International, and of Helen Keller. And this will tie into when you see White Cane Day. Helen Keller asked that the Lions Club take over dedication to the blind, which is something that it's our major charity. We gave $50,000 last year to the new center that's down around, I think it's near California Pacific Hospital. It's a New Vision Center. So, we're also doing something. We co-purchased a small machine that will test children's eyesight at a very early age, kindergarten and so forth. So we might be able to catch any problems that the kids are having at the very beginning of school and be able to notify parents and have them go on for other testing. And if they can't afford it, the Lions Club does pay for it. So I thought that might be something of interest. And the scholarship dinner comes up on the 23rd of June.
Okay.
And we
Okay.
have 34 scholars this year.
Okay. Okay, any other commission matters?
I don't know that this is a commission matter, but it's a community matter. Brisbane Dance Workshop is having their annual spring performance. Brisbane Dance Workshop is having their annual spring performance this weekend. 2 shows Saturday, 2 shows Sunday. Lots of tickets left. We are not sold out. Would love to see people from the community there, whether you have kids or not. See what our kids are doing in town. It's a wonderful show.
Okay.
I often
Thank you.
have the good luck of going into the community center to set up for Lions Club dinners and see the kids practicing. We tried to be very quiet and not invasive, but it was impressive what I was able to see, and that was the exposure that I've had to them. So yes, I wish I could go. I would like that very much.
Okay. On to staff.
Hello. No, we don't have any new programs at this time, but we do have the preschool summer program registrations just started yesterday for residents. It goes from July 7th to July 30th, ages 3 to 5. That is, and then we do have the preschool lottery for the school year starting in the fall. It up until May 19th. You can sign up if you're a Brisbane resident and get into the lottery. I think at this time we have 3 open spaces. So it's going to be tight. And then just the summer camps are still open for registration. Nothing's full yet, but I'm sure it's going to start getting busy toward the end of the school year. So that's really what we have going right now. Nothing new on the horizon at the moment.
The waiting pool opened.
Yes.
Back
Great.
up.
Yes. Great.
So that was very exciting. And then just to let you know, we are doing budget hearings June 8th, June 9th, and the adoption is Thursday, June 18th.
Is there some connection between the Rec and Park Department and Dawn David's program that she started?
Pardon me for, yeah, it's going to start on Monday. Pardon me for forgetting about that because we just signed it up today. Dawn David is going to be doing a boot camp style class Monday through Friday it's a 4-week session, and it's at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's a 30-minute class, and all the information is online. You can go, there's some reviews that people have given about her. So it sounds like it's going to be really fun and interesting.
Did look impressive.
Yeah, so she's hoping to get a lot of attention out there, and then she's going to continue it on. She'll do 4-week sessions continual until, and it's out at the park,
And this is starting at 6 a.m.?
6 a.m.
Wow.
She was welcoming all ages and
That's a
abilities.
half hour?
All ages and
All
abilities.
ages
I'm
and
sorry.
abilities, so-
A half hour?
It's a half hour because it's a 4-week session and it's 5 days a week, and it's really tough. I've heard it's a lot of different things that she puts in it.
Has it been going before? This is the first time.
I believe she's kind of done some stuff on her own. She's had people, and now she wants to, that come to her of friends that she works with and stuff, but she wants to see if she can get more community involvement. The class is only 30 minutes, but as it progresses, it can go up to 45 and probably will go up to 45. So you'll pay for the entire 4-week session.
How much is it?
185.
185, I believe,
For 20 sessions, essentially, right?
for 20 sessions. 20 half-hour sessions, but it's well worth it from what I hear. She's a killer. So, thank you for reminding me about that. I'm so sorry.
The one thing, I'm going to go to Commission Matters, and I just want to say that the conference room has an art exhibit right now of the hydrants. And Madison, when is the open?
Projected, it's up right now, so you can go and check it out, but we are scheduled to have a reception on the 20th. I'm not
Next
sure on,
Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the time. I think it's usually at like 6, but
Yeah, it's usually 6 to 8.
yeah, guys should all come. Light refreshments, drinks. There are photos from 6 different photographers, and they're really, really beautiful. So it's a great show.
Yeah, and they're all different. They aren't just the same format. They're all different sizes.
Metal, canvas.
So the photographers that did that, and there's other pictures, and maybe there'll be another display down
Yeah, we're thinking from the
the
success
way.
of
So
this.
if anybody feels rejected that their picture wasn't put up at this time, don't fret. It'll come along.
Well, Madison, why don't you explain what the process was and how some of these were chosen?
Yeah, so that's kind of important just for the public to hear how we came up with the show. So I looked at about 180 photos to select the few that were eventually put up. and many of the photos that I actually got were not high enough quality to actually be printed at the sizes that we need. So to the naked eye, they look really clear, but once you start blowing them up, you find that they get very pixelated. So a lot of the photos, had to be cut, narrowed down and narrowed down and narrowed down until we got the ones that we had, and also there's also a budget to consider. So it was kind of a painstakingly long process, and then we put in the order, and they take about 2 to 3 weeks to actually get printed. They were printed in LA, and they were shipped here. So, but the whole entire process took about 5 to 6 weeks, just from photo collecting and editing. And I had a photography consultant go in and enhance the photos, go in through Photoshop and actually clean up a lot of the dirt on them, turn some of the hydrants have the nozzles, right, and they were like all lopsided, so she actually went in Photoshop and turned them around so that they would be lined up correctly. So there's a ton of work that went into it, and so we're thinking, I know Stuart and I were kind of talking about putting this in the budget for next year after the next show, getting these up, depending on, how the success of this one goes, but it's looking really beautiful, and so that was the background process, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of photos to look through before you get the final ones. So
It took a lot of work. It's beautiful. It's one of the loveliest shows I've ever seen.
thank you.
But it took a lot of money.
It did.
And we did have some donations. We had this process started, as you know, at the commission, and then it went to subcommittee, and we were in it for several months. And then we got a donation from the Lions Club, but it was a small portion of the total cost of the
Supplies.
event. In addition to which, there was another cost for the show. So
Yeah, that's separate.
we appreciate those donations, and the fact that the Recreation and Park Department took this over, and they were there in full force on the day of the event, both days, to give a lot of support and help to all the painters. So it was a great event. The community loved it, and they loved the show so far.
Yeah, there's a lot more hydrants that we want to make sure we get photos up of, but you only have so much space and so much money and room and everything. So
The next time we can assign certain photographers to go out and maybe get better photographs.
of certain hydrants. Yeah, we learn, you learn something every time. So this is the first time we've done it, so we definitely learned a lot of things. So, but it's beautiful, and you guys should all come on the 20th.
Okay. So, written communications, I have none.
Nope.
Commission calendar.
So next time you're going to talk about your mission statement,
Yes.
and you'll review whatever memo I come up with for the
Okay.
sustainability framework.
Okay. I don't know if we could do this time or the meeting after. I would have liked to see the the new harbor master come over and
Okay, yeah, I think-
introduce himself and
Sure, we can do. We can ask him if he's to see
Available.
make him himself available.
yeah,
It's a great
and
idea.
just tell us what's going on over
Sure.
there, and because we kind of always forget about the marina. We used to get the newsletter.
Right. I mean, the marina used to be part of Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
But it's now part of the Public Works Department.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So I mean, so the operations of it is
Yeah.
Public Works. It's more, from a Parks and Recreation, we're still, can program the green space
Right.
and other things like that. But from just a day-to-day operation,
Right.
it's more Public Works. But we can invite
Okay.
the harbor master to come in and speak to the operations.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to add anything else? Okay. Okay. So that's what's going to be on the agenda. So adjourn. 8:23. Thank you.
One thing I always forget is to turn my